In today's business landscape, customers demand the highest standards, and companies that fail to meet those standards risk falling behind and losing business. Welcome to Nexus Consultancy. We have dedicated over 15 years in helping businesses to implement ISO management systems for improved quality, compliance, operational excellence, and customer satisfaction. Our company's purpose is simple, which is to empower business and people. Our team of experts work closely with our customers to access their needs and create customized solutions that meet their specific requirements. We conduct thorough audits and evaluations to identify areas for improvement and help our customers implement changes that drive success. Our consultants have extensive experience and serve over 2,000 customers, and we stay up to date with the latest industry trends and best practices. Whether you're a small business just starting out or a large corporation looking to improve your operations, Nexus Consultancy is here to help you optimize your operations, increase profits, and achieve your business goals.
Hello, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Yep, I can see a lot of people already signing in. How are you today? If you are good today, can you type yes in the chat box? My name is Danielle from Nexus Consultancy. So just to have some sound check, can you hear me loud and clear? Right, thank you for responding. So we're already on the clock, so let's get started. Okay, I'm sharing my screen now. So just to cross-check if you can see my screen clearly. So any technical problem, you can let us know by putting it in the chat room, yeah? Okay. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Preparing for FSSC 22000 version 6, Key Changes and Transition Tips. So my name is Danielle. My passion has been in the food industry, helping companies establish and implement food safety management system and achieve their food safety goals. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box and I will attend to them from time to time and try my best to answer them. So at the end of the webinar, we'll also have some time reserved for Q&A. So in today's webinar, we will cover this topic in 1 hour time. We'll go through an introduction of FSSC 22000 version 6 and the overview of the key changes. And then in topic 3, we will dive into the FSSC 22000 additional requirements, which are the most important part that you need to establish and implement in transition to version 6. And lastly, I will share with you some tips for your version 6 transition. So I can see many familiar names joining us today. So I believe your company are currently FSSC 22000 certified to the current version, which is a version 5.1. Yeah, so I hope in these sessions, I will give you some insights and useful information to help you transit to the next version. So maybe some of you are not certified to FSSC 22000 yet. So I hope it can be useful for you to implement it in your current food safety management system. For example, 22000. Okay, so on 31st March 2023, the Foundation FSSC has published the latest version 6 of the FSSC 22000 scheme. FSSC as the leading brand in food safety management systems provide trust and deliver impacts to the consumer goods industry. So FSSC schemes also support the consumer goods industry in implementing the effective control and help organization to achieve their target. So in this new version, we can see that they have also added a new component to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I will cover that in section 3 later, thus creating a better world. So first, let's take a look on the FSSC 2000 version 6. So the version 6 standard consists of 5 parts and 2 appendixes. All right, so you can see on the screen part 1 to part 5. Part 1 is a scheme overview where the food categories and the scope are defined. We have some changes over here, so later you can see if it did impact your certification scope or not. And if you are currently in version 5.1 and need to transit to version 6, you will need to pay attention in this part 2, right? Which is the requirements for organization to be audited. We shall cover this topic in much detail in topic number 3 later. And part 3 and 4 are the requirements for certification process and certification body. And part 5 is requirements for accreditation body. So on top of the main scheme documents, FSSC has also published some guidance documents which can be helpful to be used to establish and implement certain requirements such as food safety and quality culture, food defense, and environmental monitoring program. So feel free to download them from the FSSC website. Okay, so just a little bit of introduction. What is FSSC 22000? So FSSC 22000 is a scheme published to manage food safety risk and improving food safety management in the food industry. So the scheme is managed by this FSSC, which is Foundation Food Safety Systems Certification, and governed by an independent board of stakeholders. Right? So it is designed to help company to meet increasingly stringent food safety requirements and regulations, and to ensure that your customers receive the food that is safe and of high quality. And we all know that FSSC 2000 is one of the schemes that is recognized by GFSI, the Global Food Safety Initiative. So meaning when you are certified to FSSC 2000, you're able to serve the international market. All right, so the FSSC 22000 version 6 standards consists of 3 reference standard book, as you can see from the screen. So the first book is the latest version, which is the FSSC 22000 version 6 scheme document. And you can download this book from their website for free. Second book, still the same, no changes, using the ISO 22000 2018 version. And the third book is the ISO technical spec, the PRP book. So this technical spec, you need to use the relevant copy that is related to our industry. So for example, if you're in food processing, then you'll be using this book, Part 1 Food Manufacturing. All right. So if you're currently certified to the version 5.1, the most important parts that you need to make change and implement for the transition to version 6 are actually in the first book. Okay, so you may download this book from the website. Okay, and then if you haven't done so, you can download them and start studying them. All right, so there are 3 main reasons for the updated version of the FSSC 22000 version 6. First is they integrate the requirements of this book, ISO 22003 Part 1. And this book is about the requirements for certification body providing audits and certification of food safety management system. So hence, we will see some changes in terms of food categories and scope because of this integration. Second reason of the changes is because they want to strengthen the requirements to support companies in their contributions to meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDG. So nowadays, everybody is talking about ESG. So FSSC has also put in effort in terms of that. And the third reason is FSSC also incorporate feedback as a result of the version 6 development survey, which received nearly 2,000 responses. So you can see some enhancement and added clarification in the part 2 additional requirement later. Okay, so I think everybody is concerning about the transition timeline. So when do you need to transit from 5.1 version to the latest version. So version 6 will have a 12-month transition window to allow company to prepare for the new version and certification body for implementation and get their accreditation. So the first audit to version 6 will only start on the 1st of April 2014. Okay, and all organizations must complete the version 6 upgrade audit before 31st March of 2025. So the foundation has already published the version 6 upgrade process document, which detail the transition requirements and the version of the changes between 5.1 and version 6. So you can download them for more information as well. So mark your date. The latest due date, the due date to upgrade your version 5.1 to version 6 is the 31st March 2025. All right. So if you have any questions pertaining that, like when should you arrange for audit, feel free to ask the questions in the chat box. Okay, so that is a quick introduction about FSSC new version. So now let's take a look on the overview of the key changes. So the main changes that we see in version 6 are these three. So first one, we see some realignment of the food chain category in accordance with this book ISO 22003. So hence the scope has been expanded to include trading and brokering, which is under the subcategory of F2. So this is to the scope. And we also see some scope has been reduced, has been removed from the category, which is farming. And they have also removed FSSC 22000 quality scheme. So I'm not sure you're also certified to FSSC 22000 quality. If you are, it will not be valid anymore. Okay, you just need to maintain your FSSC 22000 version 6 will do. Okay, the second key changes that we see is in the FSSC 22000 Part 2 additional requirement, which has a lot of significant changes, I would say. So in summary, they integrate the requirements on food safety and quality culture. So earlier in the old version, the auditor has started to talking about food safety culture, but it's not really an official requirement in the book. But in version 6, they have already included this as one of the official clause. So we'll go through later in topic number 3. And some other changes, including they have added some new requirements on quality control, food loss and waste, and also equipment management. So which means you will need to create procedures and control for these 3 new requirements. And they also strengthen the additional requirement from the existing scheme, Part 2 of the scheme, including allergen management as well as environmental monitoring. So the clause has been expanded and added more clarification, which means more requirement for us to comply as well. Okay, so the key changes, number 3, are the some changes that we see in terms of requirement for the certification process, and also they have added the QR code on the FSSC 22000 certificate. So in future, once you get your FSSC 22000 certificate from certification body, you will see a QR code there, and people can actually scan to validate the authenticity of the certificate. So this is for improved traceability purpose. All right, so this is a book that we have been talking about, the ISO 22003 Part 1, which is the requirement for CB. So because of this book, we actually see the update in the food category and also the scope. Okay, so if you are already certified to version 5.1, then you know that which category you are certified to. So for example, if you are doing biscuit or maybe chocolate product, which is an ambient staple product, then your category will be under category C, right? So they have updated some of it. So in general, they have added 2 subcategories, as you can see from here, which is the B3, this is a new subcategory added. It's a pre-processing handling of plant products. So in the next slide, I will explain what are they. And then C0, animal primary conversion. So this is for the slaughtering house. And some subcategory they remove, which is category D, feed and animal feed processing, the sub, but the main one they still maintain, and also subcategory in G for transport and storage services. And we also have some update changes in other category. You can see from C1 to C4, okay? So this is an overview of the food category and scope offered for FSSC 22000 certification. So you can check your industry falls under which category. So maybe in your current version, you are in certain category, but because of this new update, your category may change, right? So you need to cross-check with your certification body. So for category B, they have one subcategory B3. This is a pre-processed handling of plant products. So plant products, meaning you harvest the products, for example, fruits and vegetables, but you do not transfer them to, like, for example, to salad or to processed fruit or vegetable. You still remain as a farm, like you harvest the apple. So when you sell them, the apple is still in the whole apple form. Okay, so that will be under category B3. So some activity that is allowed under this B3 include the cleaning, washing, rinsing, sorting, grading, trimming, cooling, waxing, and then packing, and then delivery, prepare for delivery. So that will be under the category of B3. So let's move on to C, category C, processing of food product. So they have added this C0, which is the animal conversion, which means the slaughtering, okay? Remove the guts from the animal, okay, freeze, chill, packing, and so this animal also includes seafood, like fish, okay? And then category C1 is processing of perishable animal product. So this one is further processed, like you cut them and then pack into the packaging and then you freeze them, all right? And then C2 is processing of perishable plant products. So for example, you cut the fruits or you produce fruit juice from fresh fruit, or you produce salads from vegetable and fruits. Okay, and then category C3 is processing of perishable animal and plant products. So it's a mixed product. So example, you mix vegetable and eggs together. So example of product under this category would be pizza, lasagna, sandwiches, ready-to-eat meals. Okay, so last subcategory in C is C, which is the processing of ambient stable product. So this one, if you are producing finished product that can store at room temperature, for example, canned food, biscuit, chocolate, sugar, seasoning, so you will be under the category of C4. Okay, so next is category D, which is the processing of feed and animal food. Then E is catering and food service. Okay, F, we have two categories. F1 is retail, wholesale, and e-commerce. So they've added the e-commerce. And then F2 is the new category they have added in, which is the brokering, trading, and e-commerce. Okay, so the difference between the F1 and F2 is actually F1, layman, you can say that is trading. Then they do allow some physical handling and also minor processing activity if you're under the category F1. Okay, and then F2 is buying and selling product on its own account without any physical handling. So you may act as an agent. Okay, so you buy and sell the product, but you don't store the product physically. Okay, you hire somebody else to store it. So that is under the category of F2. Okay, next is category G, which is the transport and storage services. And then for I, which is the production of packaging material, and K is production of biochemical. So K, no changes. All right. So forgot to mention the part that I written in red is the changes. So for easy reference purposes. Okay. So in conclusion, FSSC 22000 version 6 has added 5 new requirements and 12 requirements were expanded and added with detailed clarifications. So let's take a look on the additional requirement. Okay, so yeah, I can already see some questions posted on the chat. Yeah, so let's try to answer that. Sherry, you asked that should previously we register as C2 for the salad. Now do we need to break them into B3 and C2? So let's go back to the slide again. So last time you are under the perishable plant product, should you break it to B3, is it? That depends on whether you have harvesting activity. So if you have harvesting activity and then and you sell the harvested product, then it will be under the category B3 as well. And from the harvested product, some of it you use it to produce your C2, then it will be under C2. Okay, I hope I answer your question. Okay, so let's take a look on the FSSC 22,000 additional requirement, which is the most important part, yeah? So what I'm showing on the screen right now is the new requirements added under part 2.5 additional requirement, which impact all of you here if you are transitioned from version 5.1 to version 6. So from last time, version 5.1, they have 15 requirements. Now they have increased to 18 requirements. Okay, so I've highlighted the changes in red color for easy reference purposes. So let's quickly go through the topic. So one is still the same, measure of service and purchase material. And then number 2 is product labeling, and they've added printed materials. Okay, and then 3 and 4 is still the same, which is the food defense and food fraud mitigation. 5 is still the same, which is the requirement for using the FSSC logo. 6 is measure allergen. This is the part where we see a lot of added clarification and expanded requirement. So more things to do to manage allergen now. 7 as well, environmental monitoring. They have added more clarification. In a way, it makes it easy for you to implement, but also there are a lot of requirements to fulfill as well. And then 8 is a new requirement, 8 and 9. 8 is food safety and quality culture. This is applicable to all food chain and category. And then 9 is quality control, also applicable to all food chain category as well. And then 10, the title has been expanded, added transport. Last time is storage and warehousing. Okay, moving on to 11. It's the same requirement, hazard control and measure for preventing cross-contamination, but they have added some clarification. 12 is PRP verification, still the same. 13 is product design and development. So last time they called product development, now they have added in design. And then 14 is hub status. So the only requirements that has no changes in version 6 is this 14 hub status, which is only applicable for category D, the animal feed product. And then 15, 16, and 17 is the new requirement added, which is the equipment management, food loss and waste, and also communication requirement. Okay, so which means we need to establish criteria and procedure and document to comply with these 3 new requirements. And last one is still the same, which is the requirement for company with multi-site certification. Okay, so I'm going to zoom into one by one, try to cover all the important details. So to give you some information on what to update later in your system. Okay, so first let's take a look on management of service and purchase. So this one is applicable to all food chain category. So from A, you can see that when you use either internal lab or external lab services to do food safety testing, verification or validation, then you need to ensure the competency of the lab. So for internal, you can do some proficiency testing. And for external, then you're looking for ISO 17025 accreditation. All right, so basically no changes in this requirement. And then the second one is on emergency procurement procedure. So this one also no changes, but they have added category F2, which is the brokering and also the retail, scope into this. So this one, in terms of the requirement, when under the emergency situation, you need to purchase from alternative supplier, what would be your control criteria is still the same. Okay, so C is policy for procurement of animal, fish, and seafood that are subject to control of prohibited substances. So example, like if you are buying animal, fish, and seafood as your raw material, you need to have policy to control the prohibited substances in the raw material. So example, you should set the acceptable range of the pharmaceutical substances, medicines, heavy metal, and pesticide in the product. So they have added food chain category C0, C1, C3, and C4 into this control. Okay, so they have expanded the control as well. And then D is still the same requirement. You need to review the material that you purchase from the supplier. The reason for review their spec is to ensure that the spec continue to comply with whatever requirement, food safety, quality, legal, and customer requirement. So this round, they have added finished product as well. Okay, so meaning you have to set a process to review all the raw material and also your finished product. And lastly, on E, this is a new requirement added under clause 251, which is for food chain category I, production of packaging material. So I'm not sure today in our participant, anyone from the packaging material industry. If yes, this is applicable to you. Okay, so for food category I, addition to ISO 22000 requirement, you need to establish criteria related to the use of recycled packaging as raw material input into production of finished packaging material and ensure relevant legal and customer requirements are met. So what does it mean is that if you are in the packaging material industry and some of the raw material, you actually use recycled packaging as your raw material input, you need to set up procedure and criteria to control the quality and food safety of the recycled packaging material used. So how to control, example, you need to know the source and also do your supplier evaluation of this recycled packaging. Okay, then probably you need to run some material testing on the recycled packaging that you intend to use as a raw material. Then when the material arrive, you may need to do some sorting and cleaning because it's from recycled source. Take care of the hygiene and sanitation. And you will need to segregate them from your normal material. And for traceability, ensure you can trace where they are coming from and make sure they comply with law. So example, it depending on country. Some country, they don't really have a law yet. So example, in US, FDA, they already set a requirement if you want to use a recycled plastic as a raw material input in your product. So you need to be aware of what are the legal requirements that you need to comply when you do this recycled packaging, use this recycled packaging as your raw material. Okay, so that is the new requirement. Okay, so if you have any questions pertaining to that topic, feel free to type the questions in your chat box. Yeah. Okay, so next we'll move on to the second clause, which is the product labeling and printed materials. So no changes in terms of labeling. So when you produce a finished product, remember we need the label, right? So ensure the label comply with the legal requirement, including your allergen statement, customer specific requirement, ingredient list, nutritional information. Okay, so no changes of that. And then unlabeled products, if you're not selling consumer product where you sell bulk product to your customer for further processing, then you will need to ensure product information will be available to your customers so that they know how to handle them in a safe way. Okay, so the changes here, they just added clarification. The scope of this control shall also include printed materials as well. Okay, and then they have added two new requirements under this clause. So let's take a look on the first one, which is when you make a claim on your product. So what sort of claim? Example, allergen like gluten-free, certain nutritional claim, okay, like high protein, certain method of production, for example, cold pressed juice, okay, change of custody, for example, the strawberry that you use is from Switzerland, raw material status, for example, is halal or maybe it's organic. So when you make this claim on your finished product, label and packaging, then what do you need to do is you need to maintain the evidence of validation, okay, to support the claim. So example, if you say that, okay, my strawberry is from Switzerland, okay, country of origin is Switzerland. So what kind of evidence that you need to keep to actually support your claim? So you need to keep all the purchasing orders, receiving document, and to prove that the strawberry that you buy is actually from Switzerland. And you also shall have verification system in place, including make sure all the material that contributing to the claim can be traced. And of course, you need to do mass balance tests to ensure product integrity is maintained. All right. Okay, and then the other new requirements that I've added under this clause is only applicable to food chain category I, which is the production of packaging material. So if you are in this industry, your product is packaging material and you supply to a food customer, you need to have a new procedure to control your artwork and also print. The reason is to ensure your printed material meets applicable customer and legal requirements. So you need to put all this 1 to 6 requirements in your procedure. So first, you shall have an approval process of artwork standard or master sample. So approved by your customer, approved by your organization. Number 2, you need to have a process to manage changes to artwork and print certification. So let's say customer requested to actually change the color or maybe change some printing on the artwork, so you need to have a change management process and to manage the obsolete artwork and printing materials as well. And then 3, you need to have approval of each print run against the agreed standard master sample. So this one is like your initial running QC, release. The initial sample QC need to approve first before you started your mass running of the packaging material. Number 4, process to detect and identify printing errors during the run. So you should have some in-progress QC check. And then 5, process to ensure effective segregation of differing print variants. So this one is control of rejected product. And then 6 is process to account for any unused printed product. Okay, so this one is to actually prevent from sabotage because people may steal the product and do something, bad about it. Okay, so these are the 2 new requirements added under product labeling. All right, so next move on to 3, food defense. So food defense, actually, they don't have major change, but they've added some clarification in the current control. So we all know that for food defense topic, we need to do threat assessment. So now they've said that when you do threat assessment, okay, so I think before I move on, I just clarify a bit. So food defense is for you to control the intentional contamination caused by the act of sabotage or terrorism. So people purposely contaminate your product. So we need to protect. So you need to set up a program, a food dispense program to protect your product and material from intentional contamination. So in order to do that, we do a threat assessment first. So it's also a kind of risk assessment. Now they've added the requirement says that the assessment must be done based on the defined methodology. So usually auditor will ask you, right, where do you get the method from this assessment and things like that. So you need to have a defined methodology. So FSSC 22000 have published a guidance document on this. Okay, I've written down here, FSSC 22000 guidance document food defense. So you can actually refer to that book to build up your methodology, or you can use any other methods that's available in the industry. For example, TACCP or some method that we are teaching that is used by BRC. Okay, to identify and evaluate the potential threat and within the scope of your organization. And then based on the threat assessment, then we develop and implement appropriate mitigation measure for significant threat. So this is the first part, threat assessment they've added. You need to have a defined methodology. Okay. And then second, once you do the threat assessment, then we come up with the control plan, right? So the plan, they says that it must be based on the threat assessment result. So let's say in your threat assessment, you have low risk, medium risk, high risk. So based on the risk level, you come up with your control measure. And then not only mitigation measure, but you need to put in your verification procedure. It's just like your CCP lah. So when you set up a CCP, you will have the monitoring procedure for CCP, and you also have the verification for the CCP, right? Same here. So something similar. Okay. So the food defense plan will need to be implemented and supported by the company food safety management system. You shall comply with any relevant law related to this topic, cover the process and product within the scope. So this one apply to when you do the threat assessment, you need to start from the beginning of your process. So the beginning of the process is usually start from purchasing. Okay, because when we talk about food defense, you purchase the raw material comes in during the journey of delivery. You need to start from purchasing, and then you receive it, and then you store it, and then you use them to do production, packing until the product is delivered. So this is an example of the processes to be covered in the food defense threat assessment. And then you shall also cover all the products that you use, the raw material, packaging material that you use, and also all the products produced within the scope, and ensure the plan is always kept up to date. All right, so pay attention to this. If you're in the category of Act 2, which is the brokering, the trading, what do you need to do extra thing on top of all this? You need to do your own threat assessment and food defense plan. You shall also ensure your supplier have a food defense plan as well. Why? Because for F2, they don't handle the product physically, right? So meaning they just act as an agent to buy and sell to the customer, but the product doesn't really go into their warehouse. They don't have storage activity. They don't go through them. So that is why they need to ensure the supplier that they appoint to handle the product need to have a food defense plan. So the question is, how do we know the supplier have a food defense plan? So probably you need to include this into your supply evaluation process. Monitoring program, for example, you need to go and audit them or ask a copy of their food defense plan document. Okay, so this is a new requirement. All right, applicable to category F2. Okay, so let's move on to number 4, food fraud mitigation. So still the same requirement, you need to do a food fraud vulnerability assessment. Same thing here, they've added must be based on the defined method. So FSSC 2000 also published a guidance document on food fraud mitigation, which you can refer to. And then from there, you do your assessment. So they've reminded that the assessment shall cover the processes and product within the scope of your company. Okay. And then from there, same with food defense plan, you need to come up with your food fraud mitigation plan. So it's a documented plan based on the result of your vulnerability assessment, put in all the mitigation measures as well as the verification procedure. Make sure it's implemented and cover all the processes. So same thing here for category F2, which is the brokering and trading. Yeah, you need to ensure supplier also have a food fraud mitigation plan as well. Okay, so feel free to ask me if up to now if you have any questions. Okay, I can see a questions here. All right, so Adiba, thank you for your question. It says that if there are no use of recycled packaging as raw material, should we do risk assessment or supplier evaluation? Adiba, may I clarify, are you a packaging material production company? Yeah, because that category, that requirement is only applicable to packaging material. Yes, so if you don't use recycled packaging, should we do a risk assessment? Yeah, you still will have your supply evaluation. So since because we already have the requirements of recycle, I figured the reason why you ask is because sometimes you do not know whether the supplier themselves use any recycled packaging or not, is it? Yeah, so it's always good that you added that requirements into your supplier evaluation to ask them to declare whether they use any recycled, and in VS, you can impose the same requirement on them. Okay, right. Then Shireen asks, may we know how do we prove that food defense plan is implemented? Would monthly food defense checklist sufficient? Okay, so to prove food defense plan is implemented, it depends on what you write in the food defense plan, what control. So for example, in your food defense plan, imagine it's like your hazard CCP plan. You say that maybe every hourly you will need to sample your finished product and check for having for metal contaminant. Or maybe every week you need to go around the factory to check for any security breach. So it depends on what actions that you have already put inside your food defense plan. So frequency is also mentioned in the food defense plan. So if the frequency of monitoring says is weekly or monthly or daily or hourly, then you need to have the evidence to prove that. So it could be a checklist or it could be a record. Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. So let's move on to logo use. So logo use, no major change. So this one is for company that is already certified to FSSC, then you're able to use the FSSC certification logo, right? So you just need to fulfill the requirement not to use on product, okay, just to use on certain documents that is allowed. So I will not go through that. And then they have added this, you need to request a copy of the latest FSSC logo from your certification body before you use them. Okay, so always get the latest copy from them to ensure that the latest logo is used. And then they've added where you cannot put the logo. They have added this on your COA, Certificate of Analysis, or COC, Certificate of Conformity. These two documents, you also cannot put the FSSC logo, yeah? All right. Okay, so that's it for logo use. Okay, let's move on to measure the allergen. So they have added the clarification, this allergen control apply to all food chain category. So last time you may ask, okay, if I'm in packaging material industry, do I need to include allergen? Now the answer is yes, yeah, because it's all for all food chain category. So what do you need to control? This is similar to what the existing requirement. You still need to have an allergen list, including all the raw material and finished good. And then you need to do a risk assessment related to allergen contamination and cross-contamination risk. So this risk assessment, I would like to clarify a bit. Usually what we have seen many companies are doing is actually they put it into their hazard analysis document, right? Where you list down your raw material and then you list down the allergen. So that is not sufficient if you only have that kind of risk assessment for allergen. Now you also need to analyze the cross-contamination risk of the allergen in your process. So you need to look at your hazard analysis document for process step. For example, during mixing, what kind of allergen cross-contamination will happen during mixing process? So for those that are familiar with hazard analysis, you'll know that you need to put in the biological hazard, the physical hazard, chemical hazard in your hazard analysis, right? Then now you need to add in the allergen cross-contamination in your process hazard analysis document. So to analyze the cross-contamination risk of this one. Okay, so actually this is not new, but we noticed that a lot of people, they actually miss out that. So you can actually add it in now. Okay, then so from here, then you identify what sort of controller. So you have your allergen control procedure. All right, okay. So they have also added some clarification for this allergen quite a bit. So now we need to do validation and verification of control measure implemented and documented. So meaning to say that you need to validate and also verify your allergen control. So for example, you need to do some ATP test, allergen test as part of your verification testing to be conducted. Frequency, you need to decide based on risk. So based on the risk assessment just now, and if it's high risk, then probably the frequency is high. Low risk, then the frequency is maybe every quarterly or every 6 monthly. So you need to decide on your allergen testing, the frequency based on the risk assessment. Okay, so which means now if you haven't included the allergen testing in your one of the testing plan, then you need to do that now. Okay, it's a new requirement added. And another requirement says here is usually on finished product label, we will put the allergen information like this product contain what kind of allergen, gluten, milk, and things like that, right? But some company, certain product where they actually produce non-allergen product and allergen product in the same plant. And then what they do is that for non-allergen product, they will put a warning. They'll put a warning that this product is produced in a plant that also process nuts and so on, right? So now they have this requirement states that you can only use this warning label when the outcome of your risk assessment identify allergen cross-contamination as risk to the consumer, even though all the necessary control measures implemented. So meaning to say, by putting the allergen warning label, it doesn't exclude you to have allergen cross-contamination control. You still need to do whatever is necessary to prevent cross-contamination from allergen to non-allergen product. Okay, so it's no longer like, oh, how I cannot separate allergen and non-allergen weighing. What I do is I just put a allergen warning lah. Cannot. You still need to separate your allergen and non-allergen material weighing process station. You still need to implement certain control, even warning label. All right. Okay. So another added requirement is that all personnel shall receive allergen awareness training. Yeah. and specific training on how to control the allergen associated with their area and work. So you need to provide allergen training to, let's say, mixing staff or weighing staff where they need to handle both allergen and non-allergen material. You need to provide this training to your warehouse people so that they know where to store allergen, non-allergen, and how to prevent cross-contamination. So you need to provide this training now. And then for your allergen management plan, whatever control that you have to really list down, right? Like, for example, I separate the station, I separate the storage, I do allergen testing. All this control, you need to review at least annually or whenever there's changes that impact your food safety, review to ensure that they are still suitable. Okay, yeah, so this is the new requirement added. And for category D, which is the animal feed product, where there's no allergen-related law for the country of sale, then you may indicate this section as not applicable. Yeah, so this one is only for category D. All right, so let's move on to environmental monitoring. This one has a lot of clarification added as well. So environmental monitoring are referring to, for example, what we know as, swab tests. You need to swab the surface to verify its cleanliness. You do air swab, surface swab, hand swab, and water test, right? So when you design this test, you will need to base on risk. So meaning to say, there's another risk assessment that you need to do. So you may ask me, Danielle, can I add this risk assessment in my hazard document, hazard analysis? So my recommendation is that it's quite difficult to actually include this environmental monitoring risk assessment in your hazard analysis document. You can actually create another risk assessment document just for this purpose, all right? So we create a risk-based environmental monitoring program for relevant pathogens, spoilage, and indicator organisms. So in the next slide, I will show you what are they. So these are the scope that you need to cover, like in terms of microbe. Then you need to have a procedure for the evaluation of the effectiveness of all your control, like your cleaning, sanitation process, and then do testing, and then make sure they comply with your legal and customer requirement. And then you need to do a trend analysis. Data of the environmental monitoring activity, you need to do a trend analysis. So your swab test result, your water test result, all you must compile and do a graph to study the trend, and then review at least annually. So how do you review? First, you review the risk assessment document to see any changes that you need to update. Second, you review the control whether is sufficient or not. Like now I'm testing, I'm monitor at the frequency of monthly basis. So is it okay or not? So based on the trend analysis, you can do the review. All right. So you can refer to this guidance document published by FSSC for environmental monitoring. You can download for free from their website. So just now we say what are the microbes that need to cover, right, in your environmental monitoring program. Related to the product and raw material use. If it's not related, then you can exclude them. So for example, pathogen includes Salmonella, Listeria, Staph aureus. Spoilage organism is yeast and mold, and some indicator organism like coliform E. coli. All right. So they give you some guidance on that. And just now when we say that you need to decide your environmental monitoring program based on risk, right? So in the guidance document, they actually give us this guidance on dividing your factory into different zones. So different zone will have different risk level. So zone 1, 2, 3, and 4. So zone 1 is the high risk zone, product contact surface, direct contact. Okay. Zone 2 is non-food contact surfaces, but it's very close to your food product, indirect contact. For example, your mixing machine, the exterior of the mixing machine. Okay, then zone 3 is more remote non-food contact surfaces located in or near the processing area. So for example, your forklift, okay, your trucks and things like that. Zone 4 is non-food contact surfaces outside the processing area. So take out your layout plan, divide them into these 4 different zones for your environmental monitoring risk assessment purposes. And then for each zone, you can define your risk level. Okay. All right. So moving on to 8 is food safety and quality culture. So this is a new requirement. So you need to have some kind of evidence to prove that you are actually looking into the culture of food safety and quality in your company and do some improvement plan. So how do you do that is I would suggest that you can do a questionnaire, okay, a culture questionnaire. Do some gap analysis first in your factory to try to understand the baseline and also what is the current gap in terms of culture. So what is culture is we want the company to actually have the same value and belief and same mindset towards food safety. So for example, when the supervisor is not around or the manager is not around, the people still doing their job, following all the procedure. You know, sometimes when we go to a company, people will share us like, how do we ensure operators do their work even the supervisor is not around? They will still, you know, maintain the cleanliness, wash their hands. All right. So that is so much to do with culture. So if you have a healthy culture, you don't have to worry when you're not there and then people don't do the work because the culture is already set. They already have the same mindset as you. So I would suggest you do a gap analysis. You can use a simple questionnaire. So if you need I think last year we have published a questionnaire related to that. If you need a copy, you can type, I need a copy of the food culture questionnaire in the chat, then we can share it with you later. So you do the gap and then from there you develop your improvement plan. Okay, so if from the survey you notice that, oh, a lot of people are actually not aware of our food safety policy and objective. So then you come up with your improvement plan. What do you want to do? So your improvement plan will need to somehow cover all these 4 areas, which is highlighted by the document here. So your improvement plans might have a plan on how do you improve communication, the plan on training. You must do employee feedback and engagement. So how to get feedback from employee in terms of your food safety requirement in your company, and you must measure performance related to food safety. Okay, so in your plan, cover these 4 areas. Next thing to do is you must have the objective, food safety and quality culture objective, all right, related to this 4 topic as well. So remember, we always say about quality objective and food safety objective. So something similar to that, you set up a food safety and quality culture objective related to this 4 topic. So maybe you can set objective on communication, to improve communication by what and what, to do whatever training, how many times in a year, example. Okay, so the objective must be supported by your documented food safety and quality culture planner. So this is the plan that I'm talking about. You can develop your plan by start doing a gap analysis, send some questionnaire, ask people to answer. So from there, come up with your improvement activity. So improvement plan, of course, you need to put in what are the activity to do, responsible, deadline, and when to review. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that is my sharing on food safety and quality culture. Okay. So next new requirement is quality control. So I believe all of you already have this criteria in place. If you are doing a food product, besides checking food safety criteria, you also will check quality control criteria. For example, sensory test, color, appearance, weight control. So all these are quality control. So now you just need to include the procedure into your management system procedure. And on top of that, you need to have the quality policy and objective. So incorporate this policy into your food safety policy and objective. So maybe for the past, you call it food safety policy. Now you need to add this quality word in your policy as well as the objective. So then you implement and maintain your quality control parameter. Okay, so 2 new requirements that you need to take note here is you need to have a line startup procedure and also the changeover procedure. So do a procedure, how do you start up the line? Like before startup, you need to do some clearance, some checking, some cleaning and sanitation. And when you change over to another product, what is your control to ensure quality and the safety of the product? So 2 new procedure, or you can combine into 1 to be established. Okay, so moving on to 10, transport, storage, and warehousing. So same requirement, you still need to have a procedure indicating proper stock rotation, first expire, first out, or first in, first out. And then they have added this category C0, which is for the slaughtering of the animal. You need to define the post-slaughter time and temperature. Okay, then take note on the real requirement here. If you use any transport tanker, okay, for finished product. So let's say you transport your finished product. Maybe your finished product is in bulk. Let's say, for example, bulk oil. Okay, you deliver to your customer using a bulk tanker. What do you need to do now is you need to have a documented risk-based plan. A lot of risk assessment here in this new requirement. You need to have a risk assessment done to actually decide how frequent you should do the transport tank cleaning. Okay, and if you buy raw material that comes in tanker, okay, you need to request a supplier on this tanker cleaning validation, how to prove that they have cleaned it, how to prove that they have done the cleaning and validate it. So some supplier, they supply you with the tanker cleaning certificate. That's one of them. And you also need to define restriction linked to prior use. So before sending the raw material to you using this tanker, previous 3 load must not use to, load other type of product and things like that. Or it cannot be used to load non-food product in the tanker, example. And also whatever control measure that they need to put in place to preserve the quality and safety of the product. For example, certain temperature they need to, maintain while they deliver in the tanker to you. So you need to define this cleaning validation, restriction prior use, and also any applicable control measure in your supplier agreement. So you must have a supplier agreement with your supplier who supply you raw material in bulk. Okay, yeah, so that is the new requirement here. Okay, so next one is the hazard control and measure for preventing cross-contamination. So no changes, they just added B3 and C, category C, and also C0. So this one, it says that you will need to make sure if, let's say, you use packaging that have a special function to extend the shelf life, for example, vacuum pack, then you need to set the requirement how to check the setting of the vacuum pack machine. All right, so that is the same as the current requirement. And then they have added a new requirement for category D, which is animal feed. So they need to make sure when they do formulation, they manage the use of ingredient or additive that contain components that can have a adverse animal health impact. For example, if they mix antibiotics in the product, so they need to have, control out what is the maximum dosage. All right, so that is on 211. And then for all category, they also have added this foreign matter management, except for category F2. Now you need to do the risk assessment again to decide, do you need to use any foreign body detection equipment? We used to say that metal detector is not compulsory, right? Last time in FSSC, but now, in order to decide whether you need to use a metal detector or not, you must do a risk assessment first, okay? To decide whether the type of raw material that you use and the type of machine that you use will actually have any risk of foreign body contamination or not, okay? So for example, if you have grinding process, then there are chances of metal contaminant from the grinding process itself to go into your product. Then you will need to use a magnet trap, for example. So you need to do a risk assessment on your processes and the material that you use, because some natural raw material comes with this foreign contamination as well. Okay, so you need to do an assessment. And then after that, have a procedure to manage and use of the equipment selected. So if, let's say, based on the assessment, you say, okay, we need to have a metal detector, you need to have a metal detector procedure, how to manage and use them. So of course, you can just get the user manual, operation manual from your supplier. And then you need to have control for foreign matter management, including measure and breakage procedure. So if currently you don't have a measure and breakage procedure, then you need to develop that, like breakage check, all right? Okay, so 12 is the PRP verification. There are no changes. You still need to do your PRP check. Okay, they've added B3 category. Okay, and then 13 is product design development. So same thing, you need to have a procedure to control that whenever you have new product or changes to the product, you need to make sure it doesn't impact your food safety, all right? You need to make sure you give training. So it's the same requirement. So the new requirement they have added is this. You need to do your ongoing shelf life verification. Okay, so if you haven't set up this, you need to set up the ongoing shelf life verification test. And if you're producing ready to cook product, you need to also do one more validation, validate your cooking instructions. So example, let's say you have a product that you ask your customer to actually warm it up in the oven for 10 seconds at this temperature, then you need to validate 10 seconds at this temperature actually properly cook the product. Okay, right. So 14 is health status. This is for food chain category D. No changes on this, so I will pass that. And 15 is equipment management. So this is a new requirement. So what is that is now you need to have a procedure to control all the equipment that you use. For example, if you are buying a filling machine, then you need to have your purchase specification. So in your purchase specification, you need to address this few points. Hygienic design. So for example, the design should be stainless steel with no sharp edges, no loosened screw and things like that. Applicable legal and customer requirement and intended use of the machine. So you need to develop this spec before you actually get the quotation from your equipment supplier. Then once you get the quotation from your equipment supplier, the supplier need to prove that their machine can actually meet your requirement. Okay, so they need to also give you their machine specification. Then you compare it, it can actually meet your requirement on the equipment. Then another risk assessments to do, you need to establish and implement a risk-based change management process for new equipment. So meaning to say is that when you change the new requirement, you need to manage the risk. So you need to have a change control procedure to manage the risk. If I change this, will that impact my food safety or not? And then, of course, you need to have a change control document before you actually purchase and use the machine. So this is a new requirement added. Okay, the other new requirement added is on food loss and waste. Okay, so just a quick definition. Food loss is whatever food that you produce in the company before it reaches your customer, those loss that happen in your production, like, you know, some product when you run, it remain on the machine and then you're going to clear them, or it may drop on the floor, that's called food loss. I know usually the term that we use in operation is called waste, but actually in this context, it's called food loss. So food waste refers to the product that is already a finished product that is fit for consumption. Like for example, running a restaurant, you already cook the chicken and then, but I cannot finish selling it. I have to dispose the chicken. So that is considered a food waste. So what do you need to do is this, you need to have a documented policy and objective and tell what is your strategy to reduce food loss and waste. So you need to set policy and objective, like to reduce food loss to how many %, example. And then if let's say you do this, you donate product to non-profit organization for charity event, or you give it to your employee to bring it home to eat, you need to have control, how to manage that. So define in the procedure, set criteria, what kind of control you needed. Like for example, it must still be within the expiry date, people can still save to consume and things like that. Okay, and if you have surplus product or byproduct from your process that you intended to sell for animal feed industry, then you also need to manage them. Sometimes we might heard that, for example, because you intend to sell for animal feed, then the hygiene we don't really take care. So now cannot. You must also take care of the hygiene, the cleanliness of the surplus product that you intend to sell as an animal feed. Okay, so that is the food loss and waste new control. Okay, the last new requirement is the communication requirement. So now they have putting into this standard that you need to inform your certification body within 3 working days, and implement suitable control whenever this happens, serious event or serious situation. So serious events are such as natural or man-made disaster, let's say got war, terrorism, flood, earthquake, that impact your food safety management system, then you need to inform a CB. Or serious situation, for example, you have a public food safety event, recall and things like that. Okay, so you have an obligation to actually inform that. So add this requirement into your communication procedure. Okay, and the last one is a requirement for company with multi-site. So do take note, this is only for category E, F, and G. So I think majority of you coming from category C is not applicable to you. Okay, so this one, no changes. Okay, so if you want to know more about this, you just can ask us, yeah? So no changes, you still need to comply with the same requirement. So that's all on the update on this. So I will quickly go to transition tips that I would like to share with you. So transition timeline is by 1st April 2024, you can start the auditing based on the new version. Then mark your date, 31st March 2025 is the last transition date. So all companies shall transit to a new version by 31st of March 2025. So if your surveillance audit falls on, May 2024, then May 2024, you will need to audit based on new version already. Okay, right? So that is on the transition timeline. So some tips from us is how to do that, because as you can see, there are a lot of new requirements added, right? So one person cannot do everything. So you form a team and then quickly run a gap analysis based on the new requirement and what you have and what you don't have, you compare. And then you create an action plan, put in the deadline, implement the changes, and then arrange for the upgrading audit. Okay? Yeah, so teamwork make the dream work. So I hope that session is helpful. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Yeah, so I'm going to check the question posed on the chat box here. So I know time is running out. I appreciate those that are still here. So I try to answer them now. Okay, let's see. Okay, so YM Young, you asked that is supplier agreement compulsory if every delivery and the supplier provides a checklist on cleaning validation, prior usage, applicable control measure. Supplier agreement is still compulsory, yes, because it's already stated in the requirement. You need to put in the requirement in the supplier agreement. Yeah, okay. Then the next question that you asked is, for any company not certified to ISO 9001, do they need to establish the quality policy? Yes, because in FSSC 20000 version 6, not only we now talk about food safety, they also want you to take care of quality. So for food safety policy, you need to incorporate quality in, so you can name it as food safety and quality policy. And then the objective, you also need to set quality objective. And is hazard analysis adequate as risk assessment for foreign body detection? In a way you can, but you must show in your current hazard analysis, how do you link that to help you decide whether the detection equipment is actually needed or not needed. Yes, you can actually combine the risk assessment for foreign body detection equipment in your current hazard analysis. Okay. So you also asked, we have a quality objective on food wastage. Is this adequate? Yeah, I haven't seen it, so need to see it. But yes, if your objective is measurable, like reduce certain percentage, then yes. How about wastage for packaging? Okay, good questions here. The wastage control is only for food, not applicable to packaging material in FSSC context. Can you share the slide? Yes, we'll be sharing the slide after this. And we'll also post this webinar on YouTube, and then you can watch it again or share it with your colleagues. Okay, that's all the questions posted on the chat box. If you have further questions, feel free to ask me. Yeah. So for those that were attending today, we really appreciate your attendance today, and we would like to offer you this a free 30-minute FSSC 22000 version 6 consultation worth Ringgit Malaysia 368. So we're going to do this online, and we only have limited slot available. So feel free to scan the QR code on your screen to claim your free 30-minute FSSC consultation. Okay, so once you register, then we will arrange the session with you online, and you can ask us any questions related to new version in that session. Okay, all right, so please do a screenshot and register. And then just some announcement to make. This is our next month webinar happening on 7th September. The topic is on ESG, the fundamental and emerging trends for SME. So our speaker is Darren, our CEO. So you can register by typing in the, I'm going to share the register link. We'll also send you the link in a separate email later. Okay, so I'm posting the registration link. for next month webinar in the chat, yeah, so you can actually register for the webinar. So I would like to thank you everyone for attending, and if you have further questions that I'm not able to answer you today, feel free to email us. All right, thank you and have a nice day.